One thing we're not going to do on this channel is stop talking about Donald Trump and Epstein. Because why? Because Donald Trump wants us to talk about anything and everything else. And I know this is still a problem for them because CNN reported that JD Vance was holding a dinner at his residence with Kash Patel and the Attorney General of the United States, who's supposed to be independent, Pam Bondi, about how to deal with the Epstein problem. Now, after that got reported, it's now coming out that that planned dinner was canceled, which is good. But we still need to talk about this because clearly they are trying to do some shenanigans. And so that's why I'm bringing on for you today one of the most knowledgeable experts around Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Tara Palmeri, to talk about some new reporting and to shed some light on what's really happening.
So I had a new story called What MAGA Doesn't Know About Ghislaine Maxwell. And there are just so many things that MAGA doesn't understand about her. For example, like her upbringing, how she had this father who was like, he really dehumanized people. He was a media baron, 300 pounds, owned huge organizations like the New York Daily News, the Daily Mirror in the UK, MTV Europe, Macmillan Press. She flew around on helicopters and private jets. They had a yacht called the Lady Ghislaine that was named after her. But he was also a very cruel and evil man that would, that would really humiliate her, who would lock her out of the kitchen when she was starving during eating disorders she was dealing with. But at the same time, he praised her and used her as sort of like a wife and accessory when she was young and beautiful, sort of like how Trump treats Ivanka. And actually, her origin story with Trump goes all the way back to her father, Robert, and Robert and Trump used to spend time together. In fact, after Robert died, and it's believed that he was killed by Mossad, that he was an agent for Mossad that became compromised after he stole the pensions. Yeah, he stole from the pensioners of his newspaper that he would need to die. And so he died off the side of the boat, Lady Ghislaine, mysteriously. It was thought that he killed himself because the jig is up, but actually Ghislaine told the Hello magazine that she believed he was murdered. It sounds very familiar, right?
Yeah, what is with everyone dying mysteriously in this? It's like everyone dies.
Right. Well, they know a lot, these people. And
But
they...
is there some sort of conspiracy around this? Like, I mean, you're closer to than most, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but following this, and I've only been paying attention to it for as long as it's kind of been in the more mainstream news, but it feels like there's a lot of there with the with some sort of power behind these mysterious deaths.
Here's what I think. I think when you play in a game where you're trading intelligence, you're working in blackmail, you play in a high flying world where you know a lot of secrets about some of the most powerful people in the world, you probably have a target on your back, right? You speaking, you being in a compromised position puts a lot of other people in a compromised position. So the easiest thing to do is to get rid of you. And I believe that applies to both Jeffrey Epstein and Robert Maxwell, who are both international con men. That's a polite way of saying it. And these were the men that Ghislaine Maxwell settled for breadcrumbs from. Because Jeffrey Epstein was abusive to her too. He would belittle her. He would call her stupid. She loved him. She wanted to be his girlfriend. And in exchange for his love, I mean, he didn't find her to be attractive because she was an adult. She would have to bring him 3 children per day, and she would cry about it to her friends. And I interviewed her friends about this. And you can read about that in the Substack as well, what they would say about Ghislaine and how she would often cry while she even was chauffeured around looking for girls. I mean, I spoke to the man who chauffeured her around. That's in my podcast, and you can listen to the conversations on my channel, Tara Palmeri Show, and on YouTube, and also on my Substack. I really go into a lot of depth in terms of the many hundreds and hundreds of people I've spoken to in their world about what happened and who these people were. But they were dark and depraved people. And I think to have a psychological understanding of what a criminal like Ghislaine Maxwell is, who she is, a sex offender who shouldn't be in a prison camp, by the way, that you need to understand her origin story.
Yeah, let's just say this bluntly, because though she obviously had a difficult life in some respects, a life that many people can't even imagine in terms of access to just anything she wanted. she's not a victim in this situation. And I know MAGA is trying to start a rehabilitation narrative around her, but she's not a victim.
No. And that's why I wrote this story. It was what MAGA doesn't know about Ghislaine Maxwell. Read it. If you read this story and you share it with your friends who are maybe MAGA or MAGA curious, or maybe think she has a scapegoat, like the media is saying, like Newsmax is Greg Kelly or Charlie Kirk. You know, maybe it was a frenzy, like they said. That's why I wrote this piece. And I started with the houseman who worked for Epstein for many, many years, decades actually, in his house in Palm Beach. And he tells firsthand accounts. He had never spoken to the press before until he let Virginia Giuffre and I sit down in his house in February 2020, and tell the story of what he saw. It was an incredible interview. And actually in the middle of it, Keith, which you can listen to on camera, the FBI calls him while we are talking to him. And he goes, the FBI is on the phone. And later that night, Virginia Giuffre, her phone just explodes. It turns into black screen. And I think it was because all of the pinging from the cell phone towers tracing us around, law enforcement tracing us as we were going from witness to witness to witnesses' houses, trying to solve the story for her, because clearly law enforcement wasn't doing their job, right? And so, just to hear from him and up close what it was like to work for Ghislaine and what he knew about Epstein, it's just jaw-dropping. And so I started by saying, if you don't want to believe the hundreds of women who have near identical stories of what it was like to be under the abuse of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, then maybe you'll believe a man. And,
wow.
Juan ended up actually being a critical witness in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. So were the pilots, so were the staff, and they've always... This was a huge operation across multiple states. Remember, he had the island, the Little St. James. He had the ranch, the Zorro Ranch. He had a place in Palm Beach on the Upper East Side. They were constantly traveling around on a private plane called the Lolita Express. So they were everywhere. And so you need staff. You have tons of witnesses, plus all the people on the flight logs, right? Mm-hmm. Plus the most important witnesses, the survivors, who, by the way, I get text messages every day from them. We're talking all the time. And one of them messaged me just before I came on the show. Why hasn't law enforcement contacted me? Why?
Well, that's a good question. Why hasn't the FBI contacted the victims? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell now in a low security prison that's being described as summer camp when she's one of the worst child sex offenders that are alive today? It's a great question. What do you think?
I mean, I think she wants a pardon. I think she's giving a narrative, as we saw reported by ABC News, that exonerates the president. And whether that's true or not, it smells fishy, man. And he knows he's in the files. Fishy. He knows he's in the files because Pam Bondi told the president that he's in the files. We know he's in the little black book. We know they were best friends during the period of we know they were best friends during the height of Epstein's sex trafficking operation. We know he's on the flight logs. So why is he in the files? And what does he know? At the very least, what did the president of the United States know? And why didn't he do something about it?
My thing is, like, I mean, I imagine with your friends, you have shared interests. I've got friends, I got CrossFit friends. I got friends, we play Magic the Gathering. I got friends, we play Fortnite. Friendship is kind of shared in the interest in things you do. So it would be very strange to me that Donald Trump has this long relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and he avoids any of the criminality Jeffrey was charged and found guilty of. That would be very shocking to me.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going to accuse someone of criminality unless I know for a fact, but...
Well, I know you're a journalist and I'm not, so...
Yeah, at the very least, if you know that someone is doing something criminal that is hurting so many lives and truly breaking the lives of children, and you don't do anything about it, that's on you. I mean, that's a very bad sign, at least of morals and values. And I, according to my reporting and the many, many victims and witnesses I've spoken to, know that so many people saw this. It was happening out in the open. When the Wall Street Journal came out with that report that was a bombshell-ish, that Trump had written a card that he denies writing to Jeffrey Epstein in the shape of a woman's body about their secret that they share together. It brought me back to Epstein's 40th birthday. And I remembered that Ghislaine Maxwell asked her friend Christopher Mason to write a song for Jeffrey that would be sung to the guests at his Upper East Side townhouse. And the song is absolutely disturbing. She asked him to write a song about his schoolgirl crushes and 24-hour erections. Ugh. And this was sung in front of people like Les Wexner, some of the richest and most powerful people in the world. That's just 10 years earlier than the 50th birthday card. And you're going to tell me that all those men didn't know that there was something creepy about their friend. Not to mention the fact that Virginia Giuffre and so many other victims that I've spoken to were around these adult men and recall meeting them. Virginia met Trump through Jeffrey.
Wow. Well,
now, she said he was polite. I mean, she didn't have a story to say about him, but she said he was polite to her. And she's very specific, by the way. A lot of people try to discredit her, but when we did our podcast, it was with collaboration with Julie K. Brown, who broke the story for the Miami Herald, who reopened the case. She was the executive producer. We worked with the New Yorker team that did the Me Too investigation into Harvey Weinstein, and they did all of the fact checking. So this is like a very solid piece of journalism. And we decided we were not going to rely on Virginia as a single source because of how much people discredit her. And we really found her to be incredibly credible. And her story,
I think it does show there is credibility if Donald Trump, one of the most hated people in the country and world, she has nothing bad to say about him. To me, that is a credible way of, at least it would inspire credibility.
She was hopeful that he would actually release the files because he arrested Epstein in 2019. And actually, she DM'd with Elon Musk, and he promised to release the files too. She told me this before she died back in February 2020. She was really upset about the Pam Bondi thing. That's when we talked about this, because she felt that Pam was just releasing her files that were already public and claiming they were classified. And she was like, no, those are my depositions. Those are my testimonies. Like, I want the real files.
Well, from what I understand, the truth will come out eventually, and it might take until Donald Trump is no longer with us, whenever that may be, or it could be that he releases them. And I personally think if he releases them now, I don't think a lot of people are going to trust what's in those files because they might be tampered with, or they might be heavily redacted. But from what I understand, if they're not released, he has no right. He has less of a right to privacy when he's no longer alive. And so it makes it a lot easier for these things to come out. So the truth, I hope, does come out, not only for the nation's interest, but also for these victims, because I think everyone deserves to know the truth.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, they need to know. And what's in it? Like, now I've always wanted to know. I was always furious with the FBI's vault because it was so redacted, all of it. But I know from even talking to Virginia that her lawyer, Stan Pottinger, brought her to the FBI headquarters to look at pictures of her body, to try to see if there were pictures of her body with men above her. And she couldn't actually identify herself. Like, that's how honest she was. She wasn't sensationalized. And there, I saw my breast. She's like, no, I didn't see my breasts in any of the pictures. I just looked through other women, girls. Mm. And this is the 300 gigabytes of files they're sitting on. Surveillance, pictures, photos. This is the stuff. I don't think we should see the girls' bodies, but we should know that people should know there's more.
Absolutely. And this isn't Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Donald Trump, JD Vance, Pam Bondi, all said should come out immediately. And now it's not. And I mean, I know you don't want to, you are a journalist. You're not going to assert why. I will assert it's because Donald Trump is in there, and it's not great. Otherwise, they'd be out yesterday. Well,
he doesn't care about anyone else but himself, the innocent people. By the way, the innocent people, I'm sure he's just thinking of men and himself. But what about the victims? What about those innocent people? That's the thing. Everybody just keeps forgetting about them. They're just political pawns and all of this. And I think that's really upsetting to them, because I do think a lot of them probably would have been Trump voters and may have been Trump voters.
Interesting.
Yeah. They kind of fit the profile, a lot of them too. They grew up in Florida, red state. They really did fit that. Not all of them, but I really do think so. And I think this is particularly disappointing to them. And it's just both administrations, political figures from both sides. They were all disappointed by them. I think what they learned on this is like, we are political pawns.
Well, I'm glad at least that you're giving them a voice and that they do at least are able to get their story out through journalists like you and other outlets that are covering this extensively. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise a little with the audience. This is something they are extremely interested in, and I understand why. And I hope the truth does come out. I know that you have a YouTube channel here. It's Tara Palmeri, and you also have a Substack. Is that right?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, and keep up the great work. Love to see your channel exploding. I definitely deserve it. You've put so much hard work behind it, and it's really cool to see your voice being elevated. Congrats
Thanks.
on being one of the most influential progressive YouTubers. Really, really cool.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cheers. Bye.